What better way to listen to the Stay Woke podcast than listen to it wearing a Stay Woke or Wokeist t-shirt? From royalteeshop.bigcartel.com. My personal favorite is the red and white one. So head over to royalteeshop.bigcartel.com to get one today. Again, that's royalteeshop.bigcartel.com.
You're now tuned in to the hottest podcast in the world, the Stay Woke Podcast, right here on the sonicbreakdown.com.
Man, it's time to wake up. Get this cake up.
Welcome back to another Stay Woke podcast. This is D. Ray Brinson, and you know the Stay Woke podcast is presented by the sonicbreakdown.com. Today we're going to do another Rapture discussion, and for this one we have Damon, Mr. Transman, again back for this our eighth one. Actually, this is the final episode of the Rapture discussion. We will have a wrap up of how we felt about the entire thing. So after this one, so definitely come back and check next week for that. But welcome back to another Rapture discussion, man.
Glad to be back, D-Ray. Thanks for having me again.
No problem. So today is going to be a Boogie Wit DaHoodie episode. As you know, the running theme or our format that we've had for every Rapture discussion is what's the background that you've had with a Boogie Wit DaHoodie.
Boogie Wit DaHoodie. I actually work at a small mom and pop bakery. I was at Costco and I heard this one guy playing this music. I didn't know who it was, so I inquired about it, and he says it's a dude from a Boogie Wit DaHoodie. I'm not sure if you know him or anything. And I was like, nope, I've never heard of him at all, but it sounds pretty dope. I'll check out his music. So he gave me the YouTube link for his videos, or at least a specific one. Kind of discovered it, kind of went through it. I found some stuff I liked. Drowning. Another one is Still Think About You. Another one was My Shit. That was the one that really spoke to me the most. And then Jungle was one of, and I didn't realize like those were his more popular ones that I found out later on. But that's kind of my background when it comes to him. I tuned in a little bit, and then I kind of just stopped and did my own thing. But I do like his music. I do like it. It's very catchy to me, and I can't wait to dive in more about his projects.
For me, I'd say I knew a Boogie Wit DaHoodie. I was familiar with the name. I was familiar with some of the more popular songs, like the ones that you mentioned. None of them really resonated with me, so I didn't do much more digging into his musical catalog besides that. I did listen to The Bigger Artist, which was his last album, or latest album. Again, it didn't really resonate with me. It's not really my vibe, the sounds that I resonate to. Usually, a different tempo, different sonic properties that I tend to not really vibe with. So that's where my, I guess, musical knowledge with him goes. But again, I was very familiar with his name, and I knew that he had a buzz in New York, and I knew that there was a kind of upswelling of growing momentum moving in his direction. I just never felt attached to it, put it that way.
That's okay. We don't always attach to some artists.
Yeah, that's fine. But I did come into this episode with an open mind and wanted to see what I would learn about him, the person, as well as more about what influences his music and his sound. The theme that I really took away from this episode was just like manifest destiny of creating, as he says kind of throughout it, of like making his way, of saying this is the plan that I have, this is what I want to do, and figuring out a way to make it happen. Which I definitely resonated with as an entrepreneur. Just that entrepreneurial spirit, something that we felt similar with 2 Chainz. It's kind of again, like I said, the theme that I took from this particular episode.
The theme that I took, I kind of liked the overall aspect of the episode, meaning I like how it covers a little bit of his background and it shows the production of his music. It also seemed to lean to his relationship, those close to him. I noticed when they were at the shooting range, he was practicing shooting the guns, and then he ends up having a taser, and he was telling his boy, "Hey, can you take this taser?" And he goes, "For 500? Yeah, I'll do it," or whatever. And actually, he said no. My bad. He said no, and he says, "If you do it for 1,000, then I'll do it." And he's like, "All right, let's go ahead." They go outside, and he starts, like trying to tase him right there. So just kind of seeing the friendship and the relationship he has with his crew, because they go everywhere together. I liked that overall theme of it too, aside from his background and the production of his music too. That's the theme I took away from it.
Yeah, I definitely felt those things throughout it as well, and I thought it was interesting when you brought up the scene of like with his family. That kind of brought me to like the personal scene of that was very actually early with Joe Black, the resident in the
they were
in the area that he grew up in.
Yeah, the little park, area right there. Yeah,
and just the happiness and enjoyment that the people were having with just him being there, and just what he said was the people are happier just even that when he's not there, things are better as a result of his success, and that they feel that imagery, and that's why that's to me it just highlighted something that I've been saying for a while about how it's important for, especially as we're young, to see people that are successful that look like us, that are from areas that we come from, so that we can relate and resonate with and say, hey, I can do that. Not necessarily that I have to. And then if you do that enough in different areas and different career paths, you can feel like you can do anything. Mm-hmm. And so I thought that was important. And just the residual effects that success can bring to others, even if it's not from a financial aspect. Like he's not, well, he later does, give out money, but the joy that I feel that Joe, the gentleman Joe Black was talking about, is I just feel like the energy of his success makes the people happier, and I thought that was important.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think adding on to that, coming from a place where they all came from and someone is successful, he comes back, he still shows love to the hood, is what some people in the streets would say. He still comes back and still shows that sort of thing. And I do think it kind of helps put a good spirit on the place. Mm-hmm. Going from that person where he was where you're from and he ended up leaving, doing successful, comes back and still shows the love to the people. Again, my thing, I don't know if your viewers have listened to the Vibrations podcast that I'm affiliated with, but my motto is spread the sugar, and that's exactly what he's doing. Just showing the unconditional love to people.
Yeah, definitely. I just, that you're exactly right that he is trying to spread that love. And it was just interesting, though, that it's also a double-edged sword, like that pressure. That scene was, even though it was short and quick, it was kind of intense of like him at the car and people just steadily asking for money, steadily asking for something. Mm. And him just patiently sitting there and it brought me back to the G-Eazy scene of, and it also explains the different environments. G-Eazy was in a country that he's not familiar with, and he's introducing to these fans. A Boogie he knows these people. He feels a bond to them, so you don't see that frustration on his face. Even though, like me, as a watcher, I could feel like, damn, like I can understand if you would be frustrated. But I just thought that was the double-edged sword to just exactly what you were talking about. Of he wants to show that love, but at some point, there's a point where, at what form you're showing that love has to have a limit.
Right, because then if you're too giving, people would have this what?
They'll drain you.
Yeah, exactly. They'll have this idea of where they can come to you all the time because they'll know you'll give them something. So there has to be a cutoff point. I mean, that's I remember that one scene where he was handing out the money in his car, and he was like, "You coming too? Oh man, I got 10 people in the studio already. I can't take any more." And then he's like, "All right, I got to go or whatnot," and he ended up leaving. But yeah, it's good that he does that, but there's got to be a boundary, a limit too. So I'm glad he's able to at least find something, a cutoff point to where he's like, all right, that's enough. Yeah, I got a dip.
Yeah,
gives just enough back.
Yeah, and that's what one of the things, like I said, that it triggered was like the danger of trying to please people and show love. You just have to have that line of understanding, where you can do, because as we were saying, basically, you can't give anybody else what you don't have for yourself. If you're depleted of everything you have, how can you continue to help people?
That actually brings me up to something I read the other day. We have two hands. We're not supposed to give both these hands to people because we won't have anything to help ourselves. We have two hands. One hand is to help yourself. The other is to help people. There's got to be a balance.
Oh yeah, that's a good comparison and analogy to it. Yeah. The other thing that I took and that was interesting to me was the scene of how they were seeing the process of what they're doing. Where he was like, okay, well, we put this out. He was like, I would say 70. Okay, I got that. I'm going to put this out. And just, it's basically, he's doing market research. That's exactly what he's doing. He's market research. How much do people really enjoy what I'm doing? Let's get a result, or let's get something tangible that we can test and then determine how that increases. So I thought that was very business savvy. and then the analysis of it, because later on, I forgot which gentleman, but another gentleman brings that up about how they were approaching it more like from the business aspect. And then they had that meeting with Gary Vee. But just really implementing and saying, you're going to be having business structure. You're the CFO. You're the CEO. You're the artist. You're the talent. You're going to bring us in. We're going to make sure the numbers are right. And we're going to make sure whatever our overarching plan is going in that direction. I just thought that was very smart, and the timing of it being put in this episode I thought was interesting too, because it ends with knowledge that I feel like a young artist would need.
Yeah, good point.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And he's probably the most relatable artist to young artists coming up.
I definitely
out of all of the people in the series. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I agree. At that time he was 21, he's 22 now. Mm-hmm. He's the youngest of everybody in this documentary, and I do agree with you. I do think he's the most relatable, because we do have a lot of young and upcoming artists that are trying to make it out there, trying to get a name for themselves. One of the things I did take away was that scene with Gary Vaynerchuk, the entrepreneur. He talked about his background very vaguely, very just lightly touched up on that, and he was talking about social media. Then he kind of showed his clips with looked like, I don't remember that older gentleman that he was, Gary Vee, that was with, but he was on a show explaining about social media and everything, and just to get up. Do you know who that is?
Larry King.
That's who I thought it was, but I could have sworn he had a little bit more gray hair than that, but I guess not.
But that was a while ago, though. That interview, it wasn't a recent interview.
Okay, that makes sense.
And then that all of that kind of encompassed the growing and learning and the ownership that they were like from the mentality, and also which tied into the confidence that he said he had, is that's understanding, just like when they got to that meeting. A lot of young artists, or sometimes artists in general, feel pressure that they need to do whatever it takes to get big and sacrifice certain things. And when he was like, well, what did you think about alcohol? Because that's the typical thing you go for rappers. Alcohol and probably some sort of tobacco product is what you would associate. That's what they want that's usually associated with those two things. And they went in there and was like, no, we don't want to do alcohol. Which means, like, they were sacrificing, that can make you instantly a lot of money. But it comes at a cost of sacrificing what you want your values. Again, and then it goes to me, it's like, again, from a business perspective, a business usually starts off either with a product or values first a product, and then the values that they want that product to convey to society.
Right. And then
in this case, A Boogie is the product. And so what he wants to portray and convey to society is the values that he wants to give off. And so whatever product he supports, he needs to make sure that's in line with him. Just like if you're a business, you're not going to do business with somebody that you don't think is reputable.
And it comes to tie in with imagery.
Yeah.
What is the message you're sending to the public about your brand?
Exactly.
It may not be strictly from you, but it's who you associate with. That's why it's very important to be careful who you associate with.
Yeah. And I just thought they did a very interesting way of presenting that I think would be digestible for younger and a different demographic than I would say would be my demographic. I just think the way that the documentary presented it, I think they'll take it from they'll absorb it, versus if I said it the way I just said it, they wouldn't absorb that.
Right. The message, the deliverance.
The delivery of the message. And that's important. You have to meet people where they're at in order to make sure that your message is received. But
it's imperative. I think it's almost like if you have something to say to somebody and that could ruffle up their feathers a little bit, if you say it in a very good deliverance way, not from a bad place or an angry place, but just saying it, as long as you say it in a very either regular deliverance or a very softer deliverance, how they're going to take it is how they're going to take it at the end of the day. So again, it's all about the deliverance, in my opinion. If I'm sitting here telling you, hey bro, you got a booger hanging out your nose, you know what I mean? My deliverance, you're like, oh, okay, I'll go wipe it off. But if I say, hey bro, wipe off that freaking booger on your nose, man, that shit's disgusting, then you're probably more inclined like, okay, I appreciate the message, but you probably don't have to say it like that. Like, damn, call me out like that.
Definitely. The other thing that I did rather enjoy was, again, going back to that ownership of how they wanted to make sure, when even another scene when they were talking to the radio host, and he was like, well, you're under Atlantic. He was like, no. You need to understand the terms of, no, we're not under anybody. It's a partnership, because there is a difference. And if you don't understand that difference, that does give you a different imagery and a difference of your brand, because then you're relying on Atlantic Records imagery to portray yours. Versus in a partnership, your imagery is yours, their imagery is theirs, and hopefully that they both work together to help boost both of yours.
Right, that's exactly what a partnership is.
Exactly.
I help you, you help me.
Exactly. So understanding and making sure that they display that imagery, and because some other artists might have just said, "Oh yeah, whatever. I know what the terms of the of my deal is. I don't need to correct him necessarily." Especially being broadcast to the airwaves, like he's just gonna let it slide. But no, they're like, no, let's explain this.
Well, that's good. He's able to put his foot down with that and really put some emphasis on this is a partnership, brother. I'm not working for you. I don't work under you. I work with you. There's a difference.
Exactly, because that can go moving forward. If let's say I'm a big brand as well, and I hear that interview, and I go that you're under Atlantic, I'm gonna then go approach Atlantic instead of go approach you.
Right, because you're getting that permission because you have this idea like they're under you. Yeah, so why am I going to ask you when I need to ask them?
Yeah, why go through the middleman? I'm going to go straight to no. But if it's a partnership, it's like, oh, if we want to work with that artist, we don't need to go to Atlantic. We have to go through you. We have to go, and that changes the terms of your deal. Let's say with that champagne company, Bel Air. If Bel Air goes to Atlantic, Atlantic's going to get a cut. That means whatever cut that A Boogie's going to get is going to be less than what it would have been if you cut out Atlantic from that point. Yeah, so sure. It's just, again, like he said, he doesn't even, well, at that point he didn't have an album out, but to have that buzz and to have that financial clout and that understanding and using it properly. And Gary Vee said it himself, a lot of people are talking and they have the attention, but they're not using it. They're not gaining them anything financial out of the attention that they've garnered.
They ain't walking like they talking.
So all of that together, I just thought it was very interesting that it was how they presented in this episode, and I thought it was well done. Is there any other personal scenes that like really resonated with you?
Oh, not really. I just do think the camaraderie he has, or the relationship with his crew, because that to me, if I was in his shoes, depending on how far back we go, but I kind of would be like in his position. I completely understand it because I really feel that if I was in his shoes, I could do the same thing with my crew too. You know, could have sworn I mentioned this a couple episodes ago. If you want to travel far, or if you want to travel fast, go alone. If you want to travel far, go together. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know what I mean? So go together as a group. You'll travel further. Everybody does their own roles, understands the roles, accepts it. Everybody would rise together. All ships rise, baby.
Yeah. Definitely, and that is something I did take from this as well. What did you think about this episode in relation to other episodes?
I was basing it off the one prior, so the Just Blaze. I did watch that one, even though I didn't have a review on it. I did watch that. I actually really liked that one.
Yeah, I did too.
It was similar in terms of the background. They just lightly touched up on it and where they started. After that, it was different. Like, this one was more focused on the artist rather than the DJ or the producer, because obviously, as we know, Just Blaze was more the producing side of it. We'll explain that in the next episode here. But this one, it was more focused on the artist. That's the main difference I knew. Other than that, that was the only relation that I seen. It was just the background and where they started. It all started from the same point, but then after that, they went different points, different planes, paths.
For me, I'd say how proud his parents were of him and how boastful and how like, oh, let me show you this picture, and just how outwardly proud of not only who their son is, what he does, of how he carries himself, reminded me of Rhapsody's episode with I think it was her mother and her auntie, I believe, in the kitchen.
Oh, the grandmother.
Or the grandmother, yeah. And where they were talking and they were like, we're just so proud of her, and just saying all these accolades and just, praising her so much. And just having a real genuine, like, I'm not saying that the other parents, like in the Davies or anything like that, but it just felt those two felt similar on how proud the parents were. It felt just like in the same regards, even though that's a New Yorker versus from Raleigh, North Carolina. How those different graphics, how they express their love is going to be different, but it's still in the same way. It was just interesting to me.
Right, same message, just delivered differently.
Again, yeah. I also took semblance to the Dave East one with how he was with his daughter, how A Boogie was with his daughter, how they're so important to them, and not just only them, but the music was another. It just instantly struck me when he was picking her up and he was making those noises, and then the benefits and cost of fame are related to the G-Eazy one. There were just scenes where it felt similar of how Jeezy was just in there, and how he's like how they both felt like they're both laid back. They're just like, I'm just kind of trying to chill, and that's just who I am. But with this, you don't really get that.
Yeah, I did take away from that too. Adding on to that, I remember Boogie Wit DaHoodie said, "You can't have a normal life once you reach a certain point." That when you just said that, I just kind of put the pieces to the equation together, and I was like, "Oh, yep, that's right. It is just like the Davies one," because he mentioned the same thing.
And then the respect and hustle part of it reminded me of the 2 Chainz one, of just that entrepreneurial spirit of and figuring ways to monetize almost on everything, and make sure that it's working in your favor. Like he said, like A Boogie Wit DaHoodie said, it's like, I get free stuff now, so I don't have to pay for nothing. Like, understanding that is important, and understanding how to use that to help gain and expand on your monetary gains. That's is key, especially if you need to, or you feel the need to give the appearance that he does of wearing all that jewelry. That's a lot of money that you have to spend.
Yeah, 300 grand.
Yeah, but if you're not spending money on where you're staying, what you're wearing, what you eat, then that's not really that big of a deal. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you're bringing in millions of dollars, you know what I'm saying, and you're not spending money on all that other stuff, because that will add up to more than what's worth what he's carrying on his neck. You know what I'm saying? So, but understanding and how to use that and to keep that balance, because that's not what the average fan sees. The average fan sees, oh, you're wearing all this jewelry, you're wearing all these clothes, you're wearing all this stuff, you're going all these places, and as we see it on Instagram, Facebook all the time, people flexing and doing all these things, but they don't really have the money to support the other aspects of it. So you're sacrificing something he's not, but you don't see that aspect of it. But that's why I thought it was important that he brought that up. Now you understand, this is why I can do that. I am making a lot of money, which is true, but I also am saving money on other things that you normally have to spend on just to survive.
That's what I really like about this documentary. It gives you a whole new lens to see in these artists' lives. So that way we're not able just to look at it from just he's just flexing his normal stuff. Yada, yada, yada. He's got a whole bunch of bling. All he does is like post pictures of his car, stuff like that. Like Black Youngster, he's always like saying, I got 50 grand. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, he's flexing his money, but who knows? Behind the scenes, we don't know what it's like. Yeah. He could just be doing that just to get his fame up, but on the other side, he's probably donating to churches, donating to society, charities. We don't know that.
Exactly.
I feel this documentary definitely does a good job. I know that's kind of more on the whole documentary side, but I just wanted to bring this up particularly with this episode.
Yeah, gotcha. What did your opinion about him change as an artist and as just an individual prior to the documentary to now?
Prior, didn't know much about him. As I explained kind of in the beginning, I just kind of, dug through a little bit of his songs. But now I'm actually, I wouldn't say a fan, but I'm generally more fond of him now. How he carries himself, kind of I like his approach to life. He knows where he needs to go. He shows appreciation for those around him. I also enjoyed his decision to talk to Gary Vaynerchuk about expanding his brand partnerships, helping himself out, making sure he gets his. I like that, the ambition, the hustle with it. He just seems like an overall awesome person to get to know. To be quite frank, and at the same time, he seems fun. I mean, I saw that again. It goes back to the relationships with his crew. He's loyal, what it looks like. So, I mean, he seems to have a really good head on his shoulders, and I can't wait to see his future endeavors.
For me, I would say I learned a lot about him as the person. I didn't know much about him as a person. I'll say my opinion about his music hasn't changed. It's not my wheelhouse. But what I did gain is respect for him as a man, as a person, from the perspective of how hard he hustles, his ambition, his business savvy, that he's not just out here just doing things recklessly. He's put a lot of thought into it. As they showed with the chess, him playing chess. He is really out here playing chess with his moves, and they're very deliberate, intentional, which is important. And I think he's approaching it from a business perspective, and as well as separating the two. The way that I feel society has it, in essence, if you really want to make and build an empire, you have to be ruthless. Look at every opportunity. Where I think business is moving away from that, or we're trying to anyways. I think with that comes also, you can also take that into your personal life. And because especially as an entrepreneur, you're working all the time. As he said, that's what he is, an entrepreneur. He's working all the time. You never stop. So if you carry that into your personal life, that can be not the best thing to be in your personal life. So I like the way that he has that separation and that balance. Being loving, considerate, loyal to his friends and family, while still being as business savvy and as advantageous as he can be in the business world to try to achieve the goals that he wants to achieve.
That's a great perspective, D-Ray. As a matter of fact, I was just thinking about what I heard about a week ago. In order for a king to be a king, he's got to do some pretty ruthless things. You have to, because if you're accepting of everything, you're not going to be a pretty good pledged king. It's not going to work. And if you're too rough, you're not going to get the power of people by your side. There's always got to be a balance. So adding on to the separation part with this, with how loyal he is and how his relationship is with the crew, but at the same time being business savvy, that's what you got to do. This brings me to my metaphor of the king. You got to have that ruthlessness at times to raise your hand and strike down, but at the same time know when to sheath your sword. So definitely. He's got to run his kingdom like that, and I think he's doing a pretty good job. And if he really keeps it up, he can really do a lot of great things for himself in the future. Yeah, I definitely agree, and that's what, like I said, that's where I gained a lot more respect for him, and I do wish him the most success that he can, and just keep doing your thing, man. It's working, and I really am happy that you allowed the documentary to come in and give a peek into this world, because I feel like it educates others that are trying to achieve the status that you are. Not necessarily that they have to go that same route, and not necessarily that they don't, but now that they know it's there, they know those steps, the steps to get to that ladder or that level of fame from his vantage point. And then they can take that and take what they feel like they need from themselves and build upon that. They have access to that information, yeah, and then something they can watch and enjoy. So they get the best of both worlds. Something where like, I can watch a film, but at the same time, I'm learning how to do this stuff too. Killing two birds with one stone. Yeah, exactly. So I want to say thank you, everybody. Actually, let me ask you, is there anything else you want to add before we wrap it up? For this episode, no, but I do want to give a special shout out. First off to you, D-Ray, for having me again, brought back. Another one is go check out Mr. Vibes and Vibrations podcast, the podcast that I host with my best friend of 10 years, who I consider a brother. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, SoundCloud, and iTunes, all under Vibrations Podcast. Oh, and the website too at www.vibrations.net, spelled with a Z, not an S, VIBRATIONZ.net. Right, and again, we'll have that link in the bottom of the description. So if you're listening to this, click on the link and it'll take you right there to the website. And I think as well as the YouTube page. So thank you again for joining for another Rapture discussion. Everybody definitely come back for our wrap up, where we're going to kind of just briefly go over not all of each individual episode, but kind of give an overall opinion about the documentary as a whole and some of the overarching themes, messages, and ideas that we kind of took away from it and how you guys might relate to it as well. So definitely come back, and I want to say, our motto, live, listen to some great music, and for this one, watch some great documentaries, and love more. We're out.